Welcome to the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast. Here, we dive into the challenges and opportunities of starting and growing a business in a small town. Join us each week as we share tips, stories, insights, and strategies to help you build a successful business in your community. We're here to help you spread your awesome. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Claire Bouvier. Welcome to the podcast, Small Town Entrepreneur. Today, we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. How many of you listening feel that there's days, maybe weeks, months, moments that you think, I'm not good enough. I don't know if I'm qualified enough. I don't know if I can say this. Can I share it? Will people want to know? All that is that negative thinking that sometimes gets into our head. So I've been talking to a lot of different clients and friends and people that I interact with, and I ask them, what is it that is you're struggling with? What is it that, and I have been there, but it's nice to hear from other people. And I've been able to put together some questions, and we're going to talk about some of the things that, how it's really helped me to overcome. And a huge one was, I will bring this a lot in the different episodes, is understanding, how you reframe your thoughts, how you think about things. And that's where the cognitive behavioral therapy that I've done over the last 10 years is going to weave in and out of talking about how it's really helped to become a really confident person, entrepreneur, business owner, what have you. And so I'm excited to share some of these things that I've had to really work with and help myself to overcome some of these doubts. And who am I kidding? There's some days that I'm still like, can I be sharing this? Do I feel confident enough to do this? So it creeps in, but it's going back to these strategies that are going to really help you. The first thing I do want to address is, particularly being an entrepreneur in a small town, the imposter syndrome is easy to kind of creep out quickly because you wear so many different hats, because you know so many different people and you have really close relationships. So sometimes it's hard to really step into owning a certain space or become an expertise because you do wear a lot of different hats and play a lot of different roles in your community. So that's something to really keep in mind, that you're not alone in thinking that, and it's okay for you to feel that way, but let's see how we can overcome it. First thing to talk about is, how do I know if I have imposter syndrome? And it's essentially, maybe you are a perfectionist, and such a perfectionist that nothing seems good enough to put it out there. And so you're afraid, it has to keep getting better and better. And then, what happens is it doesn't even get out there. And when I say doesn't get out there, whatever you're offering, a course, you're delivering a workshop, maybe you're creating a new product that you've been working on, whatever it is that, too much perfectionism can really hold you back in a really big way. The other really big one is that fear of failure. Well, what if I do this and this doesn't happen? And what if I try this and then this blows up in my face? These are all super common things, is that fear of failure, the anxiety that comes with it, the critical, laying in bed or in the shower, whatever it is where all you're thinking is thinking. And after a while, it can get really negative and you can start to really second guess, and that fear of failure can prevent you. But you got to change that. The failure is, I love this line, it's win or learn. Melinda Elmore, she would always say, she's a marathon runner, a very incredible woman, and she would say, win or learn. It's not win or lose, it's win or learn. And I think that's the key thing to remember moving forward. So I had someone ask me, well, how do I reframe the way I'm thinking? Like, how do I start that? And I think when I first started, I remember thinking, oh, I can't do this, or I can't do that, or, if this happens, and then this could happen. But remembering the first strategy is that self-compassion, really checking in with yourself and realizing, okay, first of all, look at all the good you've done. Look at all the successes. Look at all the wins you've done. I remember, say I had 100 people say, Claire, that was fantastic. Love what you offered, blah, blah, blah. But one person said, I really didn't get much out of that. I really didn't like how you presented. Whatever the negative feedback or the critical feedback was, that's all I could think about. And I would focus on that to the point that I wasn't really celebrating all the wins from the other 100 people or 20 people, whatever it was. And I think that can be really problematic. The best thing that you can do is, put it to the side and say, okay, that was one piece of feedback. Is it validated? Was this person just angry, or did they actually have good feedback? Because that's great to have that information. So then moving forward, maybe you're going to make your material more accessible, or maybe they couldn't hear you when you're presenting, or maybe the product didn't serve that need, whatever it is. If it's just someone angry, you're going to have to move on and focus on those other 100 people. But that feedback that maybe upset you could be really a great growth for the next step. So reframing the way you think about it is not focusing on the one teeny, maybe critical or negative feedback, but celebrating the wins, looking at it and saying, hey, look at how far I've come, and focusing on that. There's another question that I really liked. I had a friend say, well, I'm trying to build this brand, and how do I make a really great brand and put it out there if I'm having these feelings of self-doubt and I'm not really putting myself fully out there? And I took some time to think about it, because I remember all these things I've been, I'm sharing the stuff that used to be once Claire was, that's where I was, and it still comes back, but I've come a long way in this space. And I think the biggest thing to remember is when that self-doubt is starting to creep in and you want to create something big, you got to remember, this isn't about you. You're building something awesome in this world that's not about you. It's about serving. It's about serving your customer. So if you can go back to why you started the business, why you're doing what you're doing, that's going to motivate you. And you're serving, I remember reading this, is you're serving your old self. And that's, when I sit down and create something, I have to remember who is the really struggling Claire at this point in her life, and how I'm going to serve that old Claire, and who else is in the world that I'm serving. So you can take it away from it being about you and worrying about the self-doubt, how I look, how I feel, what are people going to think, but you're thinking, no, there's people out there that actually you are serving and that will really benefit from that. And go back to why are you creating what you're creating and who you're serving? And that's going to be such a motivating feeling to remember why you're doing what you're doing. And slowly that self-doubt will quiet itself and go away. Let's say you're going and finally you're feeling really good. Things are happening. And we talked about maybe that, one person gave you that negative feedback and just stopped you in your tracks. And that's all you could think about. And you're really trying to frame your mind differently and be positive, but sometimes that can happen. So maybe, you've done the self-talk, you've gone to that, you've really focused on your, why you're doing the work you're doing, and that's motivating you, but it doesn't seem enough. And I can't stress this enough. You need to find other like-minded people that are on the inner circle, that understand you, know who you are, and that you can have a sounding board, someone that you can sit down and say, hey, I'm kind of caught in this tunnel vision. I need to be reminded that what I'm doing, I had a conversation with a friend not too long ago being like, I don't know if some of the material that I put out there is valuable, but it will be to some people, and you don't always know who it's being valuable to. And that having that conversation, sitting down with her and just hearing what she had to say, and remind her from an external point of view. And you can't always look for external, affirmation, but you look for those people in your inner circle that really give you that feedback, really help you with reminding you that what you are doing is helping people. And if it's not, that's something you have to reevaluate, and having those people to give you that feedback. But usually this is just about your imposter syndrome, the self-doubt, the fear of failure, afraid, what could happen if it doesn't go perfectly. So, you hear it a lot. Find your people, find your tribe, find the people that care about you, that will give you positive feedback and honest feedback, so that you can make the changes or keep going and give you the momentum to keep going with the work that you're meant to do. I love this. Someone once said to me, can your imposter syndrome sound like it's like a, a disease or something? Like, can it be cured? And of course it can. And it's like anything. I talk a lot about building, your emotional intelligence, or building, creativity. Just like anything, it's a muscle. And it needs to be strengthened. And the only way to strengthen it is, start with your 5-pound weights and strengthen those muscles. And slowly, the more you do it, the stronger you get. You can increase the weight and the stronger you're going to become. And I think by just making these small things, by maybe not, maybe it's just sharing a post saying, you're sharing something about your product, and just owning it and not, overthinking it too much, and celebrating that maybe one person gave a like and a feedback, something. And I think that is a huge block for people. They're afraid to share because they don't know, what if no one likes it, no one comments, no one interacts, no one buys it. But the more you do it, the more confident you're going to become, the more analytics, the more insights you're going to see and realize maybe it was just a really bad time of day you shared it. And like the more data, the more you put out there, the more you have to work with, the more confidence you're going to get, the more positive feedback. And it just kind of creates that ripple effect, or the snowball effect, in a really positive way. So, yes, it can be cured. And it will creep in here and there, but we have to really go back to, again, I love, if you're wondering what your why is, check out Simon Sinek, and everything he does is focusing on the why, understanding the work that you're doing, and that's going to always bring you back and center you and motivate you and keep you pushing on the journey of the work that you're meant to do. Now we're talking, assuming you have imposter syndrome, you're struggling. But I also think it's really important to address that maybe someone, you can see someone that's a perfectionist to a fault, that they don't execute, or they're always, they're very passive and they're just kind of not really putting out, they're super talented and they shy away. They're not really putting themselves out there. They have a lot of anxiety. Well, it's your responsibility as a good friend to remind them that, they're awesome. The work they're doing, like, celebrate them. And that not only, do we have to worry about our own, like, self-doubt and stuff and what we're struggling with, but if you see someone else that's struggling, that needs that affirmation, that needs a push, go out there, tell them, send them a message, remind them, because it's so important that the work that they're doing, that needs to be shared. And it might be the make or break it, having a message or some sort of support from you. So if we're looking at ourselves and asking ourselves, do I struggle with self-doubt? Do I have this feeling of imposter syndrome? And just to look at what we've talked about, the 5 things to move forward, to go through it, to push through it, through the challenges. The first one is really be able to identify this negative self-talk. So first of all, recognize that maybe you are having these negative thoughts about yourself or about the fear of failure, and really change really change the way you're talking to yourself and say, you know what? I am good enough, and I think what I have to say is important, or what I'm creating will help these people, or whatever it is. Really identify if you're having the negative self-talk and to change that. No one likes a sad Sally or a negative Nancy. And so that's why the second one is reframing the thoughts. Make sure that if you're always saying, oh, I can't do this, or if I share this, no one's going to like it, or, whatever it is, try and change that, contradict that, challenge yourself to think positively, because that's what's contagious. That's what people are going to be excited about. They're going to feel your passion. So when you're excited about yourself and the work you're doing, and not crossing the line of arrogance, but getting excited about what you're doing, you're going to rally so many people, and they're going to feel that energy, and they're going to jump on board and be part of that. So it's really important to frame and change the framing, the way we speak to other people, to ourselves. Mostly start with ourselves, how we talk to ourselves. It's going to be really contagious on how you speak to other people and how that's going to catch on. A lot of imposter syndrome also happens because we set totally unrealistic goals. So we might say, okay, I need to do this, this, and this by the end of the week. And you're getting through the week and you're like, what is wrong with me? I have done none of these things. And it's because that overwhelming amount of work that you set yourself out to do with no plan, and maybe something comes up, maybe you get sick, who knows what happens, or you just don't have a proper plan of execution, you feel like you're a total loser or a failure, or you're just like, I can't do this. And so that's the most important thing, is to really look at the time that you have. And especially for me as a new mother, I have realized, I'm filming this during nap time, and I have to be really careful on my time. So, maybe what I used to have 6 or 7 hours a day to sit in my office and play and create all these things, now it's maybe only in the day 45 minutes to 2 hours. So I have to really figure out what's the most important, prioritize, and really set small, tangible goals that are executable, so that at the end of the week, I'm not feeling like, I feel like a loser, or like, what is wrong with me? I can't get anything done. Second, lastly, when you're laying in bed, just give yourself that moment to take the time. Maybe you're too tired, you hit the pillow, you pass out, but maybe at some point in the day, give yourself a few minutes, a few seconds even, just to have some gratitude and celebrate the little success. It could be, sending out an email that was really difficult. And I know something for me that can really linger for days. So whatever it is, celebrate those successes, because that's going to give those positive serotonin boosts to you, and it will give you the momentum to carry on to the next day or to the next moment, the next hour, to do something awesome. So it's really important to celebrate those tiny successes for yourself. And lastly, I can't stress enough, find your people. Find the people that are in your corner, that are celebrating, that love the work you're doing, they love what you're creating, and remember to keep them close and really build those support networks, because they are, at the end of the day, the people that you're going to need on the highs and the lows of building a business, starting as an entrepreneur, maybe growing your business, whatever it is. It's so crucial to have those people that get you. So again, thank you for joining the Small Town Entrepreneur Podcast, whether you're listening on YouTube or you can hear it on any of the podcast streaming. Thanks for being here. I'm Claire Bouvier, your host, and join me for weekly tips, strategies, and really cool interviews with successful people in small towns that are thriving by building awesome businesses and not being limited to where they live. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.